Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we are dwelling on cliffs again, waiting
Into the
for
cryptoverse.
Bitcoin to figure out where it is headed. I mean, obviously right now it's headed down. Um, let me post this in a couple different places, and we will jump in. All right, all right. So hey guys, I think everything is playing out more or less in a way that makes sense with respect to market cycle ROI, which we talked about yesterday. Obviously, I think the main areas to look out for when you get these types of drops, one area to potentially keep an eye out for is the 50 week. Okay. And the reason I say that is because we've had sizable bounces off the 50 week in the past. Okay. Like here is a pretty nice bounce off the 50 week. Back in 2018, about a 55% move back up to the upside. So, I mean, like imagine we had like a 50% move to the upside from there. That could take you back to 44K. Now, anyways, I think that, and actually, before we get too much further, I want to actually look at the daily moving averages as well. Um, so, it's fairly evident. It's fairly evident that we will be getting our death cross relatively soon. But again, it's more or less a lagging indicator to tell you what you already know. Okay, it's a lagging indicator that basically just tells you what you already know. But these are going to be crossing relatively soon. Okay, I would say within the next 1 to 2 weeks, right? Within the next 1 to 2 weeks, they're going to be crossing. I believe for Bitcoin to avoid the death cross, it would probably have to increase by about $1,400 to $1,500 per day on average, which is very likely not going to happen. Um, and what's interesting too is if you do get a death cross, right? If you do get a death cross, maybe that'll actually correspond to a pump by Bitcoin, like it did over here. Remember this death cross, and we had like a fairly sizable move up. I mean, the downtrend stayed the same. The downtrend stayed the same. So of course, we need to say that. But it did lead to a nice little short-term pump. Now, a few weeks ago, we put out a video saying, hey, let's call it what it is. It's a bear market. That got some criticism by some people, but and I've decided we should really just stick to the data and not really care about emotions here. I'm not really um, big on using emotions to define whether it's a bull market or a bear market. I quite simply use the bull market support band. Okay, this is all I use, and if we're above it, then things are bullish. And if we hold it as support, then I'd say we're decisively in a bull market. If we go above it and hold it as support, if we go below it and we're just heading down, again, it seems bearish to me. It seems bearish to me. And that's why I made the video. I was like saying, let's just call it what it is. I mean, it doesn't, I don't think bear markets should be feared. I mean, most of the time, in fact, it's bear markets where most of the money is made because the people that DCA through the bear market tend to be the ones that come out the best on the other side. Um, but regardless, I mean, things remain bearish for Bitcoin. And until we get weekly closes back above the 20-week SMA or the 21-week EMA, I don't really see that changing. I really don't see that changing. Um, so again, we are right now we're at 31,130. I I think a lot of people have faith that 30K is the bottom. I'm not so sure. I think that there's certainly a decent probability that we go below 30K. And I think something that bull markets do is they make it hard to realize how low prices can go when things are bearish because things just go up for so long. Every single month, basically, just things are going up. Therefore, any slight pullback feels like a buy the dip moment, right? A buy the dip moment. And then sometimes what do you do if it just keeps dipping, right? What do you do if it just keeps dipping? And this is why we did the video the other day talking about the risk metric for Bitcoin. This is part of the premium list. Again, you can find a link to the sale. We're going to end that at the end of the week, so make sure you guys lock in the low rate. But that's why we use the risk metric to try to DCA dynamically into the market, where you weight your buys heavier down here and you start to scale them back as it moves up, and then at some point you stop buying, and then at some point you just start selling, and then you weight your sells higher at the top. Okay, so that's generally the idea. And then now that things are moving down again, depending on what your risk tolerance is, you could start buying now, you could start buying later. It just sort of depends on what your risk tolerance is. But the idea is, just dynamically buying or statically buying, whatever you want to do, until the market turns around, and just sort of becoming numb to what happens in the short term, and also assuming that we will come out the other side, which I think we will. Now, if you look at the bull market support band, this is something we talked about a couple weeks ago. And we said, well, if it's anything like 2019, how long could we have to wait before things do turn around, right? How long could we have to wait? By the way, if you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up. How long could we have to wait? Well, if you go back to 2019, we had this little, fake bull market. The reason why I say it's fake is because we didn't really hold the 20-week as support. There's three things that I like to see. I like to see a golden cross. I like to see us go above the 20-week. I like to see us go back down to the 20-week and hold it as support, just like we did here. And those criteria were our criteria back over here. It was not like we made them up retroactively. Those were always the three criteria. And then here we came back down to the 20-week, but again, we failed to hold it as support. But regardless, how long did it take for us to go back above the 20-week and hold it as support? So here we went above it, but we didn't actually hold it as support. We didn't hold it as support until way over here. It took about a year to hold it as support. But to get back above the bull market support band, which led us to holding it as support, took about 217 days. So that's why I keep saying, we're probably in for a 3 to 6 month period at the very least, where the price, Bitcoin's not going to be overly bullish, okay? If we were to go, like, let's say 217 days out from the current time, then that would actually put us in December before we get back on track. So there's a lot of theories out there that obviously call for a market cycle peak in December, and I've told you guys for years I don't think that's going to happen. What's more interesting is, what if we're just starting to turn around by then, and people that think it's going to turn around by then start to sell, and then we start to get bullish again? That would be somewhat interesting. But regardless, a 217-day move or something between getting back above the 20-week SMA in a decisive manner. Remember, this doesn't count. So if, imagine this rolls over and we come back above it. If we then just come back below it the next week or something, it doesn't really count. It's just sort of a fake out, and we've had plenty of those. We've had plenty of those in the past, just like we had here in January. And obviously, one could try to make the argument, and it cannot be disputed, that this would have been the main breakout we needed, but that the pandemic sort of put things on hold for a couple months. Okay, we can't really dispute that. Obviously, that is one interpretation, that we got above it. This was when we were going to start the bull market, and then Bitcoin just said, just kidding, when it became very uncertain what the entire market was going to do. So with Bitcoin here, as I've said before, I think that we're in for a much longer phase where we are not overly bullish, and we will not have a V-shaped recovery. So from here, the key thing to look out for again is the rolling over of the bull market support band, because this is more than likely going to happen. The rolling over of the support band, and there's a non-negligible probability, or chance, I should say, that at some point we have a rally back up to this band. And my guess is it's going to be hard to break it on our first attempt. Just like it was hard to break it here on our first attempt. Like we tried to, but then we just got rejected. And then a few months later we did break it. It was a fake breakout, and then the next one was the real breakout. So the rolling over of the bull market support band. So the nice thing about the bull market support band rolling over is that our criteria for becoming very bullish goes down, in meaning like the prices that we need to see. Because right now, for altcoins to have any semblance of bullishness in them, I think that Bitcoin would need to be having weekly closes above the 20-week SMA. But right now, we are so far, we're so far away from the 20-week SMA. It's a 55% move to the upside just for us to get to the 20-week SMA. So the nice thing about the bull market support band rolling over is that it makes it so that your target prices that we hope can be sustainable at some point become lower, and then altcoins can start to perform well again. Back in 2019 and 2020, I was fairly adamant that we would not have, and I regretted saying it the most. I said we would not have a sustainable 20K until the end of 2021 or early 2022. But I defined what that meant, okay? I defined what that meant. And what that meant was I said it needs to hold the bull market support band as support above 20K. And the reason I regretted saying it is because the minute Bitcoin went above 20K, everyone said, well, you said it wasn't going to be a sustainable 20K until the end of the year at the very earliest. And again, my definition for a sustainable, I was very clear on what I meant by a sustainable 20K. My definition was it needs to hold the bull market support band above 20K, because holding it as support is generally the telltale sign that Bitcoin is getting bullish. So that's what I want to see before I'm going to be overly bullish on Bitcoin going to 100K. I want to see it hold the 20-week as support above 20K. And the reason I say 20K is because 20K, again, is the prior all-time high. This is basically the prior all-time high. So I would like to see us at some point get back above the bull market support band, whatever that means, wherever that occurs, hold it as support, and from that point I'll be bullish on Bitcoin going to six figures. But as I've said for years now, I don't think that's going to necessarily happen in 2021. I think it's more likely that it happens later on than in 2021, in line with the idea of lengthening cycles and diminishing returns. So with that in mind, we can look at our let's pull up the little regression rainbow here and see where we are. Obviously, we got rejected pretty handily by that regression band that we speculated could act as some level of resistance when talking about the fact that we typically are unable to go to regression bands that are in the prior one or even one below it. And so that has continued to play a role. We have had a lot more intra-cycle volatility this market cycle. Instead of just spending a lot of time or an excessive amount of time in this regression band here before going on a fairly parabolic move to the upside, we've had a move to this band here, and then we fell back down to this one, and then we went up another one from this point. Obviously, at the end of the day, these are just lines on the chart. You can't take these to the bank. But if you're curious where this one currently lines up, it currently lines up at around $24,000. This is where we've been accumulating before, but when we left it, it was actually closer to $16,000. And let's see. Again, if we just let's pull up the log of the price over the 20-week SMA and just show again where we are. Show how things really aren't that different, and that the extension from the 20-week SMA did not really change, right? It did not really change. In fact, it just kept with the prior trend of diminished extension from the 20-week SMA. This again is the natural log of the price over the 20-week SMA. Okay. So we've seen something similar there, but to see where we currently are and go across, we are getting to levels where we typically might see a bounce. Okay, we might see a bounce. Now, I should say that this is not dependent on a fixed price. It's based on the 20-week SMA, and the 20-week SMA is dynamic. It changes every single week. But you can see that even from the current levels, the 2018 drop in December had us going down even further. The one in March of 2018 went down a little bit further. The one in March of 2020 actually bottomed out right about here in terms of extension below the 20-week SMA. And then back in March of 2014, September of 2014, and January of 2015, the bottoms with respect to the 20-week SMA bottom just south of where we currently are. So I think that's at least interesting. This is the most glaring one that's different with how quickly the price crashed over here. Okay. By the way, if you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up. Also, check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Remember, if you want to check out the sale on the premium list we'll have going through the end of the week, make sure you check it out. You'll get access to the risk dashboard, the weekly reports and videos, and more. I'll post it in the chat. All right, the other thing I want to look at is let's see. The other thing I want to look at our 100-week SMA divided by our 200-week SMA. Actually, this is one we were looking at. Was it this one? No, it was not that one. It was this one. So this is the 20-week SMA divided by the 21-week EMA. Okay, so again, this is the 20-week SMA divided by the 21-week EMA. And I think what we can do is we can just take a line at 1. And in order to understand this metric, we have to understand how these moving averages react to each other or react to the price. Now remember, a simple moving average is just, it's basically just taking the average of the price over the last 20 weeks. So it's nothing too complicated. An exponential moving average weights more recent prices heavier. Therefore, an exponential moving average is going to react more quickly to changes in the price. So if this indicator is, again, the 20-week SMA, okay, the 20-week SMA over the 21-week EMA, okay, if that's what it is, then what that means is that when we are, when the 21-week EMA is, when you're getting a number above 1, it means the 20-week SMA is in fact higher than the 21-week EMA, which means that the 21-week EMA is probably reacting quicker to the price of Bitcoin when it's turning down. So like right now, we know, I guess I can delete this one. Right now, we know this is turning down. The 21-week EMA is reacting a lot quicker. The bull market support band shows that the 20-week SMA is at 48,465, whereas the 21-week EMA is at 42,588. So this is moving up relatively quickly. And what we might want to do is see what happens when we get some change in direction here. So let me delete this. And what we could do here is look to see where it reached its sort of peak in terms of the difference. And a lot of times it occurred when there was like some type of like relief rally, because the relief rally will help the 21-week EMA move back up to the upside, because again, it's really quick to react to movements in the price. And so you can see that's why a lot of these are corresponding to some relief rallies with Bitcoin, right? You can see some of these little relief rallies. And so if we were to look to see where would we need to go, the 20-week SMA divided by the 21-week EMA, you can see there's a little bit more room for us to go in order to get to, say, where we were in April of 2018 and to get to where we were in April of 2014. But I thought that was an interesting indicator. Another interesting indicator is the 100-week SMA over the 200-week SMA. Okay, so this is another interesting one. So this is the 100-week SMA over the 200-week SMA. And again, it goes to show you that we still have, so far this cycle is very different than the last one. We know that. But it seems like, this is sort of an intermediate point, right? A bear market within the cycle, just like we had in 2019. And yeah, we'll see what happens here. You can see it starting to fold over, but in terms of where we might expect it to theoretically go at later on in the cycle, I think it could still have a ways to go. Maybe something like this. I don't know. That's the 100-week estimate divided by the 200-week estimate. All right, if you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Definitely hit the subscribe button, give the video a thumbs up. How's it going, George? Cryptos RS. He's in the chat. George is really great at keeping people calm during these times. Probably better than I am. I just more tell you like suck it up, stick with the data. But yeah, you guys go check out George's channel. He's in the chat. He's a good guy. He talks about a lot of stuff we don't talk about on the channel. So go check out George's channel. Cryptos RS if you want to find him. All right, what other... All right, let's go back. Let's go back and look to see where we are. Okay. Again, I know it's not a popular theory, but yeah, I do think the cycle is going to take longer than most people think. I think we just need a little bit of patience here for a while, and we'll very likely come out the other side. But again, don't be surprised to see an extended period of trying to regroup. If you want to call it, you can call it what you want it, but I don't see Bitcoin putting in any immediate new all-time highs. Let's put it that. I don't see it putting in any immediate new all-time highs, but I don't think it's going to take 3 or 4 years to put in new all-time highs. So like maybe it takes 6 months, a year. I don't know. I don't really see it taking 3 or 4 years at this point. But anyways, what else do you guys want to look at? Do you want to? We can look at the regression bands, right? We can look at the regression bands, not the regression rainbow. Here's the regression band. The upper regression band is now at 96,000. Okay, 96,000. We never had any weekly closes in it quite yet, but the upper one goes up to 96,000. This one down here is already over 20K. So it's already over 20K. The upper part of the lower regression band is already over 20K. In order to come back up to the top of the peak regression band, we need to move up 108% to get to the bottom of it, or 210% to get to the top. To go back down to the top of this one will be another 34% drop or so. Anyways, let's also there was another interesting indicator. There's this one. This one I sort of made as a joke, but it still is somewhat interesting to see where it is. So basically, it's just like this little corridor that I made to try to understand where Bitcoin is and how quickly prices could react. And trying to note that whenever we come down to this little green area, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the bottom. It could just mean we go sideways for a while. Like for instance, here we came down to it a couple times and it wasn't the bottom, but it just meant that there was no more immediate bleeding for quite some time. We also hit it in March of 2020. Okay, we hit it in March of 2020. We also hit it in December of 2018. And you can see that we just hit it again, right? I don't know if we're going to go, we've had wicks below it, but right now it corresponds to 30,536. Okay. So I should say again, I made this indicator as a complete joke. Okay. This was a complete joke. I did not, the equation, I can't even remember what it is, but it's a fairly ridiculous equation. It's fairly simple. It's fairly simplistic. But I was just noting where we are, right? Where we are on it. And noticing that, hey, in the past it had been some level where we did not immediately drop through it. I guess we'll see. I guess this will be the test of this indicator to see how well it holds up on its first major test. It had a wick over here already, but it bounced up relatively quickly. But it is starting to level out here, and my guess is whatever Bitcoin does is probably going to start folding over anyways before it can go back up. Kind of like, at the very least, if you go back to when was it? Back in, yeah, like right here. It was like it folded down for a while during this sort of accumulation phase before ultimately trending back up. Okay. Um, at this point, we're ever get a Forbes interview, or someone's asking if they'll ever get a Forbes interview. Um, I just wouldn't schedule it just yet. Okay, again, we still have a long way to go here. I wouldn't schedule it just yet. I think we have a really long ways to go, and the market can remain bearish for a while before the bulls return in full force. Don't worry, we will be here every step of the way, right? We're not going to leave you guys when things are bearish. And in fact, a lot of times, right, as I've said before, bull markets can make you money, bear markets can make you rich. There's a lot of people that enter crypto up here for the very first time and wish they could have got in over here. My general contention is that, if this is the new, where we are headed in this general area, there's going to be people that look back on it over here and wish they could have gotten in this area. So I just think that the people that stick around are the people that likely have the most to gain over the next couple of years or so. But if you just sort of leave the market and then come back whenever it's on CNBC again, then again you're more so, I would say that's more akin to gambling in the short term rather than like a calculated investment that you want to see it pay out over the long term. Thoughts on the stock to flow model. If you guys go watch the pinned video on my channel, I talk about it. Um, as I've said, I think all models are wrong. Some are useful. I think that model is probably a little too optimistic on the price of Bitcoin, um, and probably too optimistic in terms of the price targets, and too optimistic on how quickly we'll get there. Um, that's my general opinion on it. It doesn't mean it's a bad model by any stretch of the imagination. It just I just think it might be slightly too optimistic on short-term price movements and the time it'll take to get there. How far from the death cross? I think we're probably about a week or maybe a little over. Um, I mean, we might in fact get a pump on the death cross if history is any indication from last time, especially since we're having such a major capitulation now. I might be more inclined to think the death cross could come with a pump attached to it. I mean, if we just dubiously extend this line and even more dubiously extend this line, maybe they'll cross, you know, in maybe just over a week. It's hard to know exactly because it depends on what the price of Bitcoin does. I mean, if the price of Bitcoin continues to capitulate, then they'll happen sooner. If it bounces, then it'll still happen, um, unless it moves up like $1,400 a day. It should still happen. Um, but because these moving averages are a function of the prices for the next week, and we don't know what those prices yet are, we cannot fully say exactly when they'll cross. My guess is within the next 1 to 2 weeks, and maybe even look out for a pump during that time, especially if Bitcoin continues to remain bearish until the cross. Alexander says, why do people care about a death cross? You don't need a death cross to see the price is dropping, and it's not an indicator of future movements. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's true, right? It's basically a lagging indicator that tells you what you already know. The only thing that we did was we looked at, okay, well, what happened when we had prior death crosses after a fairly nice move? After this death cross, it took us about a year to put in a new all-time high. Okay, so it took about a year to put in a new all-time high from the death cross. So imagine it took a year this time. I'm not saying that it's going to, but if it did take a year to put in a new all-time high, you could be looking mid-June, right? I mean, mid-June, sometime out here. So, I mean, just to give an idea, What could that look like? I mean, it could look like something like this, where we slowly come back up, something like that, similar to maybe like 2019, right? Similar to something like that. Um, After this death cross, it took a lot longer. After this one, it took a while. After this one, it didn't take as long, but the cycles were shortened over here. So this one took over a year. Um, anyways, I think that, right. I mean, the moving averages are lagging indicators, so they tell you what you already know. I just, I was pointing out that the last time we had a death cross over in 2019 after a major move up, we actually had a nice 40-something% move to the upside. So a 40% move from here would be like 44K or so. I mean, obviously it depends on what the price is when it happens, but that's where I would put it. Anyways, if you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Definitely subscribe. Give the video a thumbs up. Check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. I'll post the Telegram channel also in the chat in case you guys want to join. So we'll have that in the chat. Someone says, is this bounce legit? I'm not sure that we've had a bounce yet. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. I'm reading the chat. All right, well, I mean, you guys at least know where the line in the sand is. I mean, no one's going to be getting out of bed for Bitcoin anytime soon until we get back above our bull market support band. So until that happens, everything, we're just playing in the sandbox, right? Until that happens, we're playing in the sandbox. Someone says we need a Cryptoverse Discord group. We actually do have a Cryptoverse Discord group. I think it's in the description, right? Maybe not, but I think it is. All right, let's take a look at Ethereum. Okay, so we'll take a quick look at Ethereum. So Ethereum's right now, it's at 2387. The bull market support band's at 2167, ranging from 2167 to 2198. If Bitcoin continues to dump, it's going to be hard for Ethereum to hold it as support. We know that. I mean, if you go back to the last cycle, there were definitely times where we fell below it. One notable time was here from October until January 2016 till 2017. We actually had a brief dip below it. But right now it is trying to hold it on as support. I imagine that if Bitcoin were to dump below 30K, then it might be hard for Ethereum to continue to maintain that. But if Bitcoin bounces from here, then Ethereum will likely bounce a little bit more. That's just the way altcoins generally work. Not that Ethereum is an altcoin, but I'm just trying to distinguish between Bitcoin and everything else. Do I think that traditional cycle theory is becoming somewhat invalidated? As I've always said, I don't believe in the traditional 4-year cycle. I think that the idea of the 4-year cycle was never something that made sense to me, especially when looking at the prior market. So I don't think this is the 4-year cycle necessarily being invalidated. It's just that it was never. I mean, it was not. I mean, I guess it is, but it was never really. It was a huge speculation in the first place, essentially based off one data point or based off the halving, which again, you guys know my thoughts on. But again, the prior cycles, the only cycle that was 4 years was the last one. I mean, the other ones were not 4 years. So like, this first cycle was like, 45 weeks or something. The second cycle was like 116 weeks, and then the third cycle was 157 weeks. But like everyone and their mom uses the last cycle to show that we're in a 4-year cycle. But I just say that, hey, I don't really think that's a 4 year. I mean, yeah, the last cycle was a 4-year cycle. I just think that, I'm not extrapolating from this one data point. I'm extrapolating from this trend, right? From this trend that it's lengthening cycles and diminishing returns. What are the three major things I believe that'll have to happen to make Bitcoin pump again, excluding time? Well, to some degree, I think there's a lot of YouTube channels that are very adamant of 300K Bitcoin this year, and there's the stock to flow model, which what calls for like a $288,000 Bitcoin this year. I mean, maybe this needs to be decisively proven that it's not true, and the market will start, gearing back up after all hope is lost. Lengthening cycle theory will rescue the portfolios of those who mocked it. I don't know. I do think that time. I mean, I think that time is the main thing. I think that in terms of institutional investors, you want institutional investors to come in. They probably wanted to come in. They didn't want to FOMO in at 64K. I said this when we were at 64K too. I mean, I said that what institutional investor is going to want to FOMO into Bitcoin once it's up 20x? Um, so, hey, when it comes back down, I think this is a good chance for institutional investors to get into the market. You guys, I mean, you might not like it, but there probably are going to be institutions buying up Bitcoin over the next several months at potentially lower prices than today. So, glad you like the content, Matthew. Someone says, could this be a 2-year bear market linked to the adjustment of the base interest rate? I guess it probably depends on what you mean by bear market. Like, I don't think Bitcoin's going to go down for 2 years. I think it could go down for a few months, maybe even 6 months, and then maybe move back up. I mean, it doesn't even necessarily have to go down. I mean, I just think that we're not necessarily going to be putting in any new all-time highs in the next few months. That's my general contention right now. Why did the V-shaped recovery turn into a slash? As I've always said, I did not think a V-shaped recovery is going to happen. Flippening theory, I mean, it's possible Ethereum flips Bitcoin this cycle, but if it did, I don't think it would be like permanently flipping. I don't think it would permanently flip it. Like maybe it could flip it on a day or a few weeks, but I don't know that it would stay like that, especially if things get bearish. So yeah, maybe it's possible, but I wouldn't think that it could, necessarily hold it if it flips it. Someone says, can the mods ban overly bearish comments? They are striking fear in the hearts and minds of the hodlers. Hey, you gotta deal with the bearish comments and the bullish comments with Bitcoin, right? right, sorry, just reading the I'm just reading the yeah, a lot of people are talking about Trump because he said Bitcoin. You know, I put out a tweet about this yesterday. He said that uh Bitcoin was a scam, and I tweeted, I said that some people heard Trump say that Bitcoin is a scam. I heard Trump say Bitcoin is a currency. So he said both, right? He said both, but it's also about focusing in on what he said. Yes, he said it's a scam, but most people say it's a scam. Um, if you go back to, by the way, people change their mind on Bitcoin like all the time. I mean, like all the time. Um, and there's so many billionaires today were very bearish on Bitcoin just a few years ago. Um, so I wouldn't necessarily say that just because, I mean, most people think it's a scam the first time they hear of it. If you guys want to know, if you don't believe me, so for those that don't believe me, to see how quickly people can change their mind on Bitcoin, look at this. Okay, are you guys ready for this? I don't know if you're ready for this. Look at this. Look at this tweet by Michael Saylor in 2013. Look at this tweet by Michael Saylor in 2013. Bitcoin's days are numbered. It seems like just a matter of time before it suffers the same fate as online gambling. So in 2013, Michael Saylor was against Bitcoin, it seems. But now he's like the biggest Bitcoin bull anyone could possibly imagine. So I'm just saying it goes to show you, it goes to show you how the times can affect people's view on Bitcoin. I would say the key thing to take away from Trump saying that Bitcoin is a scam is that in the same sentence he basically also said it was a currency. And there's other people too. I mean, I think a lot of other billionaires, didn't like Kevin O'Leary and Mark Cuban also think that, well, I don't even know if Kevin O'Leary is a billionaire, but like I know Mark Cuban is. I think a lot of these guys were very against Bitcoin back in like 2016, 2017, and now they've done a complete, like, they've done a complete 180 on it, which is not a bad thing. I mean, I think it's a good thing that, I mean, people are allowed to change their mind, and they shouldn't, it's fine. I think it's fine for people to change their mind on things. I think a lot of times when you're first introduced to Bitcoin, it seems weird, but then the more you learn about it, the more you like it. So even, again, even the biggest Bitcoin bull in out of all the institutional money, Michael Saylor, once upon a time, again, said that Bitcoin's days are numbered back in 2013. So it just goes to show you that Bitcoin has a way of wiggling its way into your mind, and slowly convincing you that it is, you know, the digital gold and whatnot, and getting people on board with that. But the first time you hear about it, it might seem like it's not what it's cracked up to be. But then the longer you think about it, the longer you explore it, I think the more people that come around. How long until Peter Schiff becomes a Bitcoin bull? My guess is that he already has, like, my guess is that he does buy and sell Bitcoin. He just sort of plays. I think what he does, and maybe you guys can correct me on this if you think I'm wrong. I think that, he runs this business in gold, right? So he always wants people to come over to his business in the gold market, precious metal market. In order to do that, he basically decided he can become the Bitcoin villain. So he's basically just pumping up his followers by constantly criticizing Bitcoin and trying to convince them to come over to his side of the market. That's what I think he's doing. I think that his main focus is just to he knows that there's a lot of interest in Bitcoin, and he's essentially he's attempting to capture some of the fear that comes with crypto whenever things are bearish, and to get them to go invest in his stuff that he controls, so that he can make money off of it. That's what I think. I also think he probably does buy and sell Bitcoin sometimes, and he just pretends to to never do it on on Twitter. His company accepts Bitcoin as payment, right? I mean, they sell it for US dollars, but they accept Bitcoin as payment. What did I eat for breakfast today? Nothing. I don't actually eat breakfast usually. Yeah, I know his son is a huge Bitcoin bull. Or Peter Schiff's son, that is. How would I comment on the news from Paraguay, Brazil, Argentina, El Salvador, and Panama? I think a lot of this stuff we need to actually let play out to see what exactly they mean. Sometimes it's easy to assume it means something that it doesn't. So I think once the actual legislation is intact, then we can talk a little bit more about it. Elif says, this is a good comment, right? This is a good comment. He says, I don't support the idea of lengthening cycles, which is fine, right? I mean, I think we're all, we have our opinions. But he says he does agree with diminishing returns. I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think that if I had to pick one, like which one do I think is more likely to occur? I think they're both going to occur. Let me be clear. But if I only had to pick one, I'd say diminishing returns. Not only because that has been what the trend is, but just from a fundamental perspective, it makes sense that it would be harder to move the market cap up the same amount every cycle. So yeah, I think it's a fair comment. But I also think that the cycle will lengthen as well, and maybe we'll do something like this, and it'll lengthen out here. Someone just said they bought my T-shirt. Yeah, we do have some T-shirts if you guys wanna check them out in our store. You can see we also have the what's a few trillion. These are women's, these are men's. Or sorry, this is not men's. This one's men's. The what's a few trillion among friends. Store.intothecryptoverse.com. Can we take a look at the Bitcoin shorts? Yeah, we could do that. We were actually looking at that the other day on the premium list. Before the drop, I was saying, hey, are there people out there that know something we don't? Because the shorts were skyrocketing. I mean, they were just absolutely. Let's go over to like maybe the daily. Actually, let's go over to like the 1 hour. Look at this. Like, look at these Bitcoin shorts here the other day, right before the dump. And this is what I was watching this. We were talking about on the premium list stuff. Um, I mean, the shorts were just skyrocketing. So I was like, okay, someone knows something. Someone knows something. In the short term, I think some of these got liquidated because the price of Bitcoin went up in the short term and then it went down. Got any link videos planned? Yeah, I guess I should do a link video. I can do a link video update soon. if you guys have ADA, remember we have the ITC2 stake pool. So go stake your ADA with the ITC2 stake pool. We also have an Avalanche stake pool as well. I would just go check out our Avalanche videos if you want to join that stake pool. ADA, yeah, ADA's holding up relatively well. I mean, I don't anticipate it putting in any new all-time highs immediately with Bitcoin being somewhat bearish, but given the circumstances, it's holding up relatively well. Do I think that 18 is the next floor? I think timing the bottom is really difficult, and DCing into the market makes a lot more sense. Like I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly what the bottom is, so. Yeah, I mean, guys, to look to see potential bottoms, I think you just need to look at some of the longer term moving averages on the weekly and look to see where they, the fact that we've been to them before, those would be what I would be speculating on. Nothing too crazy. The 50 week, the 100 week, and the 200 week. That's what I would generally look at when trying to speculate on what a theoretical bottom could be. Yeah, I am moving in less than a week. I'm moving, so I might have fewer videos. I don't know. Maybe I'll have more videos because I'll be getting hotel rooms and I, I'll be away from the family for a while, so maybe I'll have a little bit more free time when I'm not driving. But I am moving in a week or so, so you might expect there to not be as many videos in about a week potentially since I am moving across the country. Yeah, the mystery of the bookcases, right? Everything was fine in the crypto markets until the bookcases behind me disappeared. Do I live in my mom's basement? No, I don't. Yeah, I was recognized in public for the first time uh, a couple days ago. For the first time ever, I was recognized in public, and I was looking at this guy. Like I saw him looking at me, and he kept like staring at me. And I was like, "What's going on?" Like, um, and he's like, "Are you Ben?" It was the first time being recognized in public. What job did I used to work as? I used to work as a staff scientist in computational material science, developing equation state models for materials in extreme conditions. I quit that job in January. All right, what other questions do we have? Yeah, it was an easy job. It was an easy job. Yeah, I think one of the things that people should be really focusing on during this cycle is ignore the price for a little bit, like just ignore the price and focus on setting up, like ways to earn interest on your crypto. Okay, because everyone wants to earn interest when the prices are going up because you're like, oh well, the price is going up. But if you get it going now, if you get your well-oiled machine going now, then it will serve you well later on. Okay, so if you're looking to create like passive forms of income, everyone talks about like real estate and dividend stocks and whatnot, but we also recognize that hey, if you're here in crypto, you also probably want some stuff related to crypto. So why not figure out ways to create passive income with crypto? A lot of that could be like staking your crypto. There's liquidity pools you can provide liquidity to. There's lending your crypto like on some centralized platforms. There's so many different ways that you can start earning on your crypto. Obviously, there could be security risks, like you want to make sure the platforms you're using are relatively safe. But I do think that this cycle is going to help a lot of people replace their primary income. And you just need to start thinking about how you're doing it. And I should say that part of that is stable coins. So having stable coins is important. When things are bullish, it might seem like, oh, I don't want stable coins, but when things are bearish, you understand why stable coins are important, because if the prices are going down, you're still earning like 8 or 9% on stable coins, and then maybe you can, sometimes you can buy the dip with your stablecoins. So when things move up, you slowly DCA out into stablecoins. When things move down, you slowly take your stablecoins and DCA back in. Again, I use the risk metric, which we talked about on the premium channel. If you guys want to check out the premium channel, remember the sale on that's going to be ending at the end of the week. I'll post it in the chat. Someone says they like their steaks medium rare. Yeah, give a man a steak, he eats for a day. Teach a man to steak, he eats for a lifetime. Staking, don't sleep on staking. Don't sleep on earning interest on your crypto. Let your crypto work for you. Any idea about when altcoins like XTZ and EOS where they might be headed? Look, I'm not too big on these coins. EOS is one of those projects that raised like billions of dollars back in 2017 before they did much of anything. Now I'm not super bullish on it. Again, if you like EOS, then fine. I'm just not super bullish on it, and I've been saying that for a long time. XTZ, it was one of the ones I was unsure about. I don't own it. It was one of the ones I was unsure about, but I think if anything, this last bullish phase that we had right here, XTZ didn't really do much of anything compared to the rest of the market. So I'm not super optimistic about either of those projects. If they want to prove me wrong, they can, but I'm not going to be putting my money into them. By the way, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Let's go for 500,000 subscribers. We still have a ways to go to get there. But definitely subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. Click the bell icon to turn on your notifications. What do I think Bitcoin's going to do by 2040? Probably $1 million. It'll probably be like $1 million in 2040, if I had to guess. People always ask like how much crypto. I feel like why do people need to know that, right? I mean, if people are bragging about how much crypto they own, like, I don't know, there's probably some levels of insecurity there. I think that's just, information that you don't really need to share. If anything, you could just share your portfolio percentages. But talking when people brag about how much crypto they own, I kind of cringe a little on the inside. Someone says the real question is, what is the dollar going to do by 2040? That's a good question. Yeah, like by the time Bitcoin does reach $1 million, $1 million could mean a very different thing than $1 million means today. I mean, already today $1 million means a lot. It's a lot different than what it was 20 years ago. Someone says I'm bragging about a Forbes interview. I'm not bragging. I always say don't schedule your Forbes interview just yet. Someone says they cringe too. Someone says, yeah, I am playing chess this weekend. I'm actually going to be streaming it, I think. I'm playing in the chess.com, like, crypto champs chess tournament. So if you guys watch me streaming one day and I'm playing chess instead of crypto, it's because I'm playing in that tournament. And like, I think whoever wins, they donate like zero point 0.1 Bitcoin to a charity of your choice. So, or of my choice. Like if I win, they donate like zero point 0.1 Bitcoin to a charity of my choice. So we'll see. Yeah, I would always be skeptical about people if they're bragging about how much crypto they have and like rubbing it in your face like someone. It's not a very nice thing to do. If you have friends doing that, um, maybe set them straight. Is Litecoin fundamentally weak? Yes. um, but also from the perspective of opportunity cost, which we've been talking about forever on this channel. I mean, Litecoin. Every time I pull it up, I have to pull this down. Litecoin has now bled a modest 89% against Ethereum since March of 2019. So yeah, I mean, people get excited when Litecoin moves up some, but again, it's bled almost 90% against Ethereum. And if you say, well, maybe compare it to Bitcoin because that makes more sense. Well, if you compare it to Bitcoin, um, it's just been bleeding, right? I mean, yeah, sometimes it moves up, but it just bleeds over the macro scale. And from, say, this peak here in February 2018, it's still down 80%. So again, Litecoin is one of those ones that it doesn't really do much. And when it does, people say, hey, look, it's doing something. But it's like, okay, well, Ethereum went up 5x and and Litecoin went up 2x or something, So I don't have any thoughts on that coin, O Custom. Do lengthening cycles mean ADA will reach more than $10? I don't know. I mean, maybe it could, but I think around $10 is going to be a pretty nice target. Do I think interest returns will change with staking over time? Yeah, I do. I mean, they have to. They will change over time. They will become less attractive over time, and that's why I keep saying, now's the time to capitalize on it when they're higher. All right, guys. Well, why don't we wrap it up there? We've been going for a little over an hour. If you guys like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel. Give the video a thumbs up. Remember to check out the sale on the premium list. You can find a link to that in the description below or in the comments. Also, check out our Telegram, our Telegram channel. And then also, if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, I'll post that as well, just for those that want to follow me on Twitter. But thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you guys found it useful. Make sure you subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and I will see you next time. Bye.